The fintech industry is so cool. It's rapidly changing, and it just bugged me to no end that I had to get wet signatures and a 40-page document to open up a freaking brokerage account. Meanwhile, I could log into Betterment at the time was actually what blew my mind that I personally opened a Betterment account in 2 minutes and all the investments were picked for me, super low cost, rebalancing, tax loss harvesting, all built in. And to me, that was the writing on the wall. I knew at the moment I opened that account, I knew that there was a meteor coming down to extinct the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs being the broker dealers. And I was like, I can either be the dinosaur or the meteor. And that is when I started Advize Wealth, made the pivot.
Colin, on your firm's website, it mentions that outside of work, you like surfing, mountain biking, longboarding. So out of those, like, what's your favorite? And secondly, would you consider yourself a thrill seeker?
Great question. Good place to start. So the perfect day, the California perfect day, is to hit the surf in the morning and then go ride the snow, go snowboarding in the evening in the same day. So if you can do that all, that is the dream. I would say I lean towards anything warm. So a water sport, I like to be in the sun. I want to break a sweat. I just feel good out there. Energy's pumping. So and there's no better place than West LA to do that. So I'm definitely addicted to the sunshine and anything that's in the water, anything splashing around. And if I can pretend to surf, get pummeled by a couple waves, even better.
So to piggyback on that, which one are those of those three activities? Which is the easiest? Which is giving you the most problems?
Oh gosh, well, the hardest is surfing, man. Like if you've gone wakeboarding or snowboarding, like those are completely different animals because like wakeboarding, you're behind the boat, creating the nice smooth wave. Snowboarding, like most of the time, it's just a momentum thing and you're riding nice smooth snow. Surfing, like you have to get yourself oriented correctly. Sometimes the wave is really steep, sometimes it's kind of slow roller. Sometimes you got to position yourself right. You're not quite in the curl, or you're too much in the curl, and then all of a sudden you're in the undertow, just getting barrel rolled around underwater. It is way, way harder. So I thought I was an athlete, like skateboarding and snowboarding, and I got out to surfing. I was like, this will be easy. I had a massive scoop of humble pie, and now I feel like a total poser telling people that I surf. I really get out there and do my absolute best. I love riding the white water. Once in a while, I'll catch a nice roller. But just getting out there and swimming around, I mean, it is a heck of a workout as well. So I'm going to say out of all of that, and I feel like anyone that surfs would agree, surfing, I don't know about the easiest, but surfing is the hardest.
Okay, that's fair. I've never tried it, but it's on my list of things to do. I love challenging things. I love being outside. So, Colin, I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to start with surfing because it's the hardest thing.
Just get out there, man. Paddle around. You're gonna just feel just one with nature. It is a great time. There's nothing better than, watching a sunset on the water and cruising around with some buddies. It's a great time.
Good. Well, I guess that's a great way to get things started. So, uh, welcome, Colin, to the Blueprint at FPA NexGen Podcast. And before we do anything, I want to introduce myself. I'm Deshawn Peterson. And my co-host is Mike Zarrelli. And for everyone listening on podcast networks around the world, this is Colin. He is the CEO and founder of Advize Wealth Management. So, Colin, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here, guys.
Awesome. No, thank you. I think me and you, Colin, we met earlier this year and probably exchanged a few contacts or socials over the past maybe year. So just to see how this relationship has evolved, and really, I'm excited to have everyone hear your story because I think your journey is something that a lot of people probably resonate with, but you're actually like in the middle of it. So I'm just really excited for this conversation today.
Happy to share. Yeah. Where do we want to start?
So let's jump right into it. So I guess my one thing is like, how did you come up with the name? Because the Z is one thing that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I was just like, how did you come up with your name? Because I think that when we think of wealth management or capital or just financial planning and investment management, the names mean something to someone. So how did you come up with this name, and how do we get to this?
Yeah, so
So,
I guess nothing against anyone that has their name in it. Like I was
mhm,
gonna do like Colin Capital or Overweg Financial or something, but
mhm,
I kind of right from the beginning felt that like I didn't know if maybe this firm was going to be something larger than myself, and maybe
mhm.
someday I wasn't the only owner. And I always felt like I wouldn't be as fired up to be a partner at someone else's name's firm.
Phew.
It just kind of maybe doesn't feel quite like mine. So, everyone's got their own thing, all good
Oh,
if that's the route that you went. And I don't have any partners, so that hasn't even close to come to
yeah.
fruition just yet. But I have a really long time horizon when I put together this stuff, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. And that was kind of the idea. So it's like, all right, what's something that also describes what I do? And I think there's a fun way to even describe, I know like Michael Kitces and Carl Richards will talk about um, financial advisors and people who are not just asset gathering and financial quote unquote investment advisors. They're financial advisors. And what does that mean? They're giving advice, they're advising on money. So the word advise in itself and just giving advice really kind of felt and spoke to what I do. And I didn't want to just go with, well, I think advice wealth management may have even been taken. So it's like, all right, we're going to throw a little bit of a twist on there, toss a Z in, and that's going to be kind of the fun part of the name here.
I gotta love the Z. Always a great letter to add in there. I wanted to. You mentioned that there was a long time horizon for getting this firm up and running. So when did you start thinking about starting your own firm, and what led you to actually starting the firm?
Yeah, so I would say like even going back a little bit, getting into the industry, sadly, I don't think my story is too unique in the sense that I started in insurance. You start, it's just the easiest job to get. You feel special working at a massive firm, but really what they're doing is recruiting 20, 30 interns, getting your life accident and health. And by the end of the summer internship, only one of you is standing, and all the other ones who sold, insurance policies to their parents and aunts and uncles, they just kind of fall underneath the manager's repertoire there, and that's how I started too. And I thought there's got to be more to this, right? Like, where is the actual advice? I want to be helping people and not just selling a product. So that was kind of the first spin, not unique. Once I finally got into the investment management space, I wanted to honestly just get some letters behind my name. I thought, how am I going to tell these wealthy individuals speaking to a 21-year-old or 22-year-old out of college that they're going to take me serious? So I didn't even know what CFP was when I graduated, but thought, that seems like a credible thing to have behind your name. And as I got studying, it completely opened my eyes that there is so much more than just investment management. There's just all the pieces of the puzzle, right? So that really got me excited. Then I wanted to pivot to a firm that believed in planning, and that actually led me down another route. So I'm kind of fast forwarding here for the sake of time here. And after finally landing from a couple different firms, I felt like I was doing really great planning. But the stinker is that I had this big brother broker dealer telling me what products I could use, what financial planning actually was, what deliverables I had to have. I couldn't just charge a flat fee. I had to charge from the investments. And it was just so frustrating and annoying. And around that same time, I actually, shout out to XY Planning Network, started listening to the XYPN radio podcast, hearing stories about people who started their own firm. And if I was half as resourceful as I am today, I probably would have found a really cool RIA that was doing real financial planning and just had joined them. That probably would have been an easier route. In hindsight, that maybe could have even been a better decision. Who knows? We'll get into that, the struggles of entrepreneurship, I'm sure. But that ended up being just my morning commute every day, listening to another story of someone who did it. And finally, I just got to the point where I was like, I don't care if I have to sleep in my car. I want to do financial planning the way I feel it needs to be done, and I can help people of my own demographic or wealthier, older individuals, as I was classically trained, and be able to charge, use products, use services that were out there. I mean, the fintech industry is so cool. It's rapidly changing, and it just bugged me to no end that I had to get wet signatures and a 40-page document to open up a freaking brokerage account. Meanwhile, I could log into Betterment at the time was actually what blew my mind, that I personally opened a Betterment account in 2 minutes, and all the investments were picked for me, super low cost, rebalancing, tax loss harvesting, all built in. And to me, that was the writing on the wall. I knew at the moment I opened that account, I knew that there was a meteor coming down to extinct the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs being the broker dealers. And I was like, I can either be the dinosaur or the meteor. And that is when I started Advize Wealth, made the pivot, actually ended up having to cash out some of my 401k at the time to start the website and launch it. And I know better than anyone else the penalties and taxes involved of that. But just had absolutely no other choice. I just could not spend one more day in a suit working through the clunky technology that I had to do, begging people to come work with me at a 1% advisory fee with another 80 basis points of mutual fund expenses, with another platform fee. And it just wasn't where I wanted my money to be held. And therefore, I couldn't recommend clients to do it either.
Oh man, that's a lot to process, but I'm loving it. And let's go back before you go into like the entrepreneurship. You said you were in your early days. You said I had no idea what a certified financial planner was.
Yeah.
What provoked that decision, or just research? Because if you search, like, you got the FINRAs, there are so many, I would call them alphabet soups. There's so many designations available. Why did you choose the CFP role? And just how did you get to that? Because I think it's very important, because there are so many choices out there. And for new advisors, they might not know, hey, do I want to do this, that, or the third? So could you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was really starting from a place of trying to gain credibility and wanting to educate myself, and really just through Google searching and saying, what is the number one designation out there that is going to help me with taxes, it's going to help me with investments, it's going to help me with insurance, it's going to help me with estate planning. I wanted the comprehensive package, and the clear answer was CFP. And I think I'm so happy I did it. I don't regret that at all. I'd even recommend younger students listening to this, if they want to get into that field. I do feel that's still the gold standard. And if nothing else, a fantastic, fantastic education that is extremely practical in your life.
Yeah, really cool. I like what you said before, that, you had to take money out of your 401k to bet on yourself in starting this firm. So that takes a lot of guts to do it, knowing all the taxes and the penalties and so on and so forth. So I wanted to ask, what was your mindset going into it? Like, normally you hear like there's a 3-year runway until you just make even, get back to the salary you were at. So what was your mindset going into it?
For being a planner, I definitely created models. Like, all right, what if I gained a client a month, 2 clients? What if it was only 6 clients a year? The bear case, the bull case, etc. So planning is really important, no doubt. But for me, it kind of just didn't matter, because I had such a sick feeling going to the office every single day that I was like, there is no option. There is no other option. I had to do this. It was pouring out of me. So it didn't really matter what it took. So if I was a better planner, I probably would have had a better emergency fund. I just had purchased a house at that time, so that kind of wiped out all of my savings, of course. And so all my money kind of piled into this illiquid investment. And that's what I'm telling my clients now, is like, hey, if you're going to start a business, maybe buying a home isn't like the number one thing you should maybe be doing. So I, kind of had to, once again, take a scoop of humble pie. Maybe that should be the name of this podcast here. But that was it, I just had to. So there was no other choice in my mind. I wanted to do this. Even if I failed, I figured I could go back and get another job somewhere else. So it was like, all right, we're going to make this bet. And I ended up just reducing my living expenses to nothing. At one point, I actually ended up leaving my house, moving back into my parents' basement, and renting out my own bedroom, so that I had enough money to pay the mortgage while I had zero income. So I went as low can go from an expense standpoint and a revenue standpoint, and just had to scratch and claw uh, to start building this practice.
I don't know if you've ever read this book, but it's like burn the boats. You just don't give yourself another option. So all your only option is to succeed and make it happen. So I think
Hmm. It's a
that
great
relates to your
saying.
situation.
That's what I did, man. Yep, we cashed out the 401k. I moved into the parents' house. We burned the boats. We were going all in.
Absolutely.
Colin, what would you say for, okay, I guess it's a good way to phrase it. You're a financial planner and you're a business owner. How do you, I don't want to say juggle, but how do you work in the business and on the business at the same time? Like, how are you learning that process or just learning about yourself as you're handling those two roles? Because they're definitely not the same.
That's such a great question, and something I speak to a lot when I am asked to go and chat with students today, um, and talking at different wealth management associations and stuff. And balancing that out is really, really important. So I probably did it about as early as you really should. I only had about 4 years of experience. I just got my CFP, maybe like 9 months prior to going out on my own. So I think it's extremely important that you become a a really good practitioner first. You have to be a great advisor before you decide to take on all the other roles of compliance, of building your website, of marketing, sales, because you can be a fantastic advisor. And I see this actually a lot with like XYPN and just advisors starting to do their own practice. And they're way more brilliant than I am. They're amazing advisors, but they don't know how to sell. They don't know how to tell stories. They don't know how to market. And so they're just an incredible advisor, not helping anybody because they can't sell. And I know sales is such a slimy word because we're so used to, flipping off the insurance people who are calling themselves advisors and just selling whole life insurance to anyone that can fog a mirror. And the sales just become such an evil word in our business as advisors and trying to give real advice and not just sell products. They want to sell advice and help people. And I love that. But you got to be able to balance that if you want to be a business owner. Because I would say today, maybe 50% of what I do is financial planning. Because the other side of running the business is extremely important and time consuming. And it almost does take a whole different approach. So I love how you phrased it of working in the business, of being a great practitioner versus working on the business and taking a look at your P&L and are you actually making money?
True. It's a totally different skill set being a planner than actually being the entrepreneur, the business leader, the owner. So it's two different skill sets. Now,
100%.
I thought it was really cool hearing that 50% of your workload is the planning side and the rest is working on the business. What part would you say is the marketing and selling side? And then also, I think it's appropriate to ask, how'd you get your first client?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the fortunately for me, the sales side is going down as the business picks up. So I think it's kind of a balancing act because when you have zero clients, there's not a whole lot to do working in the business. You're basically on the business. You're trying to sell. Let's be real. And that slowly shifts as the practice matures. So, I'm a little over 6 years in. I have a little over 80 households. I'm probably maxed out at like 90 to 100. So I'm like, you know what? If I don't take a client on this month, that's okay. And quite frankly, I don't really want to. I got a 7 month at home and I'm busy as heck. So we're just looking for the best of the best clients at this point, which is a really great place to be. And of course, by that point, now I have more than enough clients knocking on the door. It's funny how that works. But that's a interesting dynamic. I think everyone needs to kind of feel out on their own. And when you first get started, sales is extremely important. And now, for me, it's more in the business and making sure I have good systems to consistently serve my clients on a regular basis. So that's another skill set in and of itself. But to answer your question, first client came from actually left with me when I left my couple broker dealers. So if anyone's listening to this and they're working at a broker dealer, thinking about leaving, starting their own business, there's a fun thing that's called broker dealer protocol. I don't know if that's changed anymore. This is not legal advice by any stretch, but from when I left, you could take up to 4 pieces of information. It was like the name, maybe phone number, address, something like that. You had to tell the broker dealer what you're doing. Basically, when you left, you usually wanted to leave on a Friday at 4 o'clock. Hopefully that they don't get the message till Monday. You can call your clients over the weekend, but it's a race, and the broker dealer is calling your clients, trying to reassign them to another advisor. You're calling the clients, trying to convince them that, to trust me on this one and go work with this great company called Advize. I just started it last week. And that's a really, really tough thing. So I was fortunate enough to have really great relationships, and probably had like maybe 6 to 10 relationships move over with me. And maybe it took the first 3 months or so to do some convincing and open accounts and actually get a hold of people and stuff. And then after that, it was just the scratching and clawing and making those awkward asks and seeing if they'll meet with coffee. Let's have a meeting. Can I try to provide some value? And that's what I always tried to lead with was, what is something I know of your situation that you might have some questions about? How can I deliver as much value for free up front to the point that you're like, wow, I want to work with this guy long term just because I know there's going to be additional value above and beyond what they're giving me for free. So that was always my take right from the beginning. I was never super great at just asking for referrals with giving nothing. I always felt like I had to have something to provide other than just, hey, come work with me, please.
You said a few things I wanted to just touch on, but it's really just an overarching thing. You said, I have enough households right now, 6 years in, where if you don't bring on new clients, it's okay. I have other priorities. You have a 7-month-year-old, so it takes precedent. Could you explain the structure of your firm, right, and the goal of the firm? Because also at the beginning of this conversation, you said, I don't have any partners. So how are you structured? Maybe just the goals of the firm, like maybe growth-wise or just your big vision, and just show and just explain like how you are operating today, because everyone's interpretation of their own RIA or firm could be different. So your vision or what you're living through day to day might not be the same for everyone, but it might be everything for, everyone else. So just share a little bit about that, because I think that's also something that we don't ever consider, like the structure of the actual firm.
Yeah, you're really actually catching me at an interesting point, which Deshawn, you and I got pretty vulnerable in our conversation, which I'm happy to hear, because I'm an open book and I just want everyone to be able to learn from my mistakes, and I know I learn from others as well. So we're all in this thing together. But I thought I was going to be scaling pretty quickly and really trying to grow. And I was even getting to the point where I was paying a company called Zoe Financial, it's spelled ZOE Financial, for leads, because I really wanted to hit the growth button. And from my calculations, paying them a percentage of the revenue and bringing on more clients made a lot of sense to be able to grow that way versus maybe a merger. And that would free up more time to actually be in the business, being a practitioner, versus just making marketing, doing marketing, making videos. So that was how I grew for quite a bit. I've turned them off maybe 2 years ago when the marketing did take place, which that's a whole nother topic, where if you're creating content online, it's you post your video and everyone knows what happens. Nothing. It's crickets, right? It takes so much time and consistency to actually create that marketing machine. So I feel like you have to almost do both, where you like have that snowball of online content where a couple of years down the road or months down the road, you'll have people giving you a call. But what the heck do you do in the meantime? And I call that more of direct marketing versus indirect. And the direct marketing is, in my opinion, just getting people on the phone, calling them, asking for referrals, doing whatever you can to bring on a client tomorrow. And that was what I thought about with Zoe, was that is an easy way to fill up my boat now. And I'm going to continue making content so I can turn that direct marketing path off. And then the indirect marketing, the content will start taking over. Unfortunately, that's exactly how it ended up playing out. Now, from a where the heck is the firm and what's it going to be in the future? I mean, shit, that's a good question. I have no idea, but I can tell you where I'm at now and what my thoughts are. I did have a full-time employee, and I was about to bring on a third, and things were going really, really good. We were bringing on 2 to 3 clients a month. We were really just scaling like crazy, growing like crazy, and our blue ocean was charging flat fees to very sophisticated clients. So we would charge around $5,000 flat fee to a complicated 30 or 40-year-old who a lot of times were in tech. They had incentive stock options or RSUs or some type of ESPP plan. They were trying to buy a home. They were trying to pay down their debt. They had a lot of irons in the fire and some complicated questions that they were trying to have solved. And that was perfect. We loved working with them. But what I found over the last 6 years was that I have about a 25%, almost 30% turnover rate amongst that high income, really sophisticated client, because they would come to me, pay the flat fee, they'd love it. They didn't have assets for me to manage because they still had 401ks that they couldn't move, or they even haven't built up any assets really. And I would help them solve that difficult problem. And then they would email me 18 months into our engagement and say, hey, I think I got it from here. By the way, here's my coworker who wants the exact same thing. So it was like such a compliment, but at the same time, they're graduating from my services. Now, I'm sure there's better ways I could have worded the services. I always tried to make it feel like we're in this together, long-term, etc. But once I solved that big problem that they were reaching out for, they felt that they could handle it from there, or they would call me later. So that's a really, really different calculation when I started thinking from a growth standpoint, bringing on advisors, that I thought my turnover rate was going to be like the standard industry average of like, 2% or 3%. Like nobody leaves their advisors, especially under an AUM relationship. But under the flat fee engagement, where that fee is hitting every quarter and they get an email reminder of the fee before it hit, they get an email confirmation after it hit. I mean, they're getting like 8 emails per year with my fee just slapping them in the face. And a lot of these sophisticated clients are going, you know what, maybe that doesn't make the most sense as of right now. So that was a really, really hard realization that the growth model and the trajectory has to really be scaled down. Because if you have 100 clients and you have a 20% turnover rate, you're bringing on 1.5 clients a month just to freaking maintain your 100. I mean, that's a lot of activity. So that totally changed my hiring analysis and actually made me even look in the mirror and pause and say, is this the practice I want to be working in? So then I have completely went from going, I'm about to hire my third person, to now I actually paused, changed the mousetrap, and actually ended up, unfortunately, letting go of my one full-time employee and just making the practice extremely lean and mean, and trying to find the clients who want to work with me year after year and find that value and having a partner for the long term. And some of those clients ended up being the AUM engagement. Other clients continued to be the flat fee. It really didn't matter as far as some of the client relationships were concerned. But that was a big look in the mirror moment. And you're kind of catching me right in the midst of that, where we had our daughter in November, and those were the type of conversations I was having. I took like a 4-week break to just be with my wife and daughter. And now I'm finally kind of back up and running. And that's when I let my employee go. And I'm making a completely different calculation as to what this business needs to look like. And for right now, fortunately, it's a great solo practice. I'm happy with the income and things like that from a solo practitioner standpoint. But do we want to scale or not? And I kind of have a different idea of scaling without hiring, which I'm happy to get into, but I'll pause.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all of that. That is just a unique journey in having to pivot your whole business, your whole program, and just the turnover story. That is pretty eye opening, especially because they're referring new people, but the onboarding is probably the most time intensive or work intensive part of
Nailed it.
the client length.
Nailed it.
So you're just turning those wheels over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
that's a
know.
lot.
It is a lot. It's hard to digest. I mean, I thought I was like so entering a blue ocean of like flat fees are so much maybe less conflicts of interest and all this other fun stuff. No one can work with these young people because, all the large firms just want assets. And so it just felt like such a different business, right? And I think there is a model there, but it certainly wasn't the high data gathering, the intense upfront planning. That is almost a losing model if they're going to be turning over in 12 to 24 months. So that needs to be a totally different service. And I wasn't prepared to build that and to have that kind of hyper volume and continue that model. So that's still kind of a looking in the mirror moment as to what does this business need to be and feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you want to continue with like where you're heading in the process of finding that North Star?
Yeah, sure. So this is very much on the cutting edge here. So I don't know if I'll even have a link to it by the time this gets posted. But so my thoughts about scaling? It's a tough conversation. I think um, like myself, I look at how I got into the business and I got going, and once I had enough confidence, I spun off and did my own thing. So, and it's really hard to keep advisors from doing that. And I don't even want to like have this business of like fear mongering of like, I'm going to sue you, an employee if you leave, and having that like weird engagement. So I don't know if I'm smart enough to navigate that correctly, or if I have the economies of scale. Like, I look at a Peter Maluk at Creative Planning, who has obviously mastered this by this point, and they're just really rolling in a fantastic ESOP program. You can become an owner of the business. Like if I was, again, at the top of the call, as resourceful as I am today, I probably would have just joined that firm and been a part owner of like an already growing rocket ship, and just I could just jump onto that rocket ship and maybe add another jetpack, right? But I went down my own path, for better or for worse, and I love where the practice is today. I can finally take a Friday off. I can spend time with my daughter and still be meeting my own personal financial goals. So I love where the business is. It's given me space to kind of take that deep breath and say, do we kind of create a new mousetrap and
Mhm.
try to scale labor and bring on advisors? Or do we try to maybe scale something that is potentially more scalable, like a course or a book or a community? And I am really excited about getting into the one to many path and getting into course creation. Now, I know that's so cringy because every scammer and their brother seems to have a course, but I want to have something that is extremely transparent, kind of like the hey, if I could take a CFP out to dinner, what would they tell me if they
Uh,
only had 60 minutes just to give me as much information as possible? So that's what I'm building today. And I think I'm actually going to price it accordingly. So what would it cost to take me out for a margarita and some fish tacos? Well, that, maybe it's 35 bucks. That's probably what the course is going to cost. So something like kind of fun and light and super informational
mhm.
and very educational, and something that you can watch for 40 minutes and just take away and implement right away to help your finances, and kind of build a community off of and around that. Because I just can't serve more than 100 households, but I have a lot of people reaching out with questions, and it feels bad turning them away.
Uh, that's a good That's a good way to pivot because, Colin, I follow your content. I'm a big fan of it, and I think a lot
Thank
of
you.
advisors want to make content. And when you look at the stats, right, across the board, it's usually like 1 to 2% of users on the internet actually create content, and the rest are just consuming it. How has content creation accelerated or decelerated your firm's growth? And I have a second part question to that. And like, how has content creation helped you forge new relationships, whether it's direct to clients or just industry or just, genuine new friends in general? So it's kind of like a part A and a part B. Could you just walk us through that?
It's honestly changed my life, because the relationships that I've made, the new skills that I have created just making content. I think just being able to put together a video to summarize your own voice. I'm not a writer. It's painful for me to write, but if I put that camera in front of my face and I get that, like, I don't know, butterfly, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? I can just pump out content, and I still get that feeling every time I hit post, but I kind of am addicted to it now. And I've gotten over what a lot of creators will call cringe mountain, where the first like 10 videos, your friends are like, what are you doing? Like, this is so weird. But now at this point, people expect it. They're like, when's the next video coming out? And it's the relationships that you meet are so much fun. I cannot believe, I'll never forget the first client that reached out from TikTok and was like, I love your stuff, I want to work with you. And they were a qualified client. And now I'm getting a qualified client just about monthly, reaching out through TikTok and Instagram. And it's getting to the point where I'm just like, all right, I got to charge more, or we're going to have to figure out another way, another place to direct these people. And it's such a fun problem to have. It just gets me so excited of like what the future could hold in that avenue, which hence why I'm thinking about the one-to-many model and having a place where I could make 10, 15, 20, or 1,000 sales in a month. Right now, I can't do that, right? With one client, taking on one new additional relationship is a big deal. And I'm really trying to understand what that time for money trade-off is worth. And what I'm learning is that the infinite scalability of courses and communities is pretty exciting. It's just it's not something I've done before, but I think I'm up for the next challenge here as I'm being vulnerable and we're talking about the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like Deshawn, I follow you as well. I think that's where I found your name, was on TikTok. A video came up, and I wouldn't say your videos are that cringy. I mean,
Thank
there's
you.
some people that are way worse.
I appreciate
But
it. Yeah, anytime you hear your own voice, at least for me, it feels like I'm like, oh gosh, that's so bad. I could have done that, or like, oh great, I got a ketchup stain on my shirt. Like, you just look like an idiot. But that's kind of my style. I just like wear my heart on my sleeve. I just say it how it is. And what's cool too is that clients who don't want that, they want a suit, they want a mahogany table, they want to overpay. You can go to Goldman Sachs. It's great. They'll love to take your money there. But for me, it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna be me. I'm gonna have a picture of surfboard in the background. Like, we're gonna have some fun along the way, and that's just my style. And I think that really resonates with people. And again, I'm not building a massive business. I need 100 relationships, and this thing is maxed out.
yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. People relate to authentic people that are themselves.
Yeah.
People that like surfing, they're going to come to you because that's who you are. And you could see that through the videos and your personality. So I wanted to ask, some of the hardest part of getting started is, one, just building up the confidence to go out and do it, but then two, the content creation of like the ideas. So how did you tackle that early on? And, now you've got a process and you're able to pump out a lot of content.
Yeah. So the analogy that I've made before is kind of like, when do you know your partner is the one and you're ready to marry them? And it's like, it's not like one day you're just like, yeah, I'm ready to marry them. It's almost just like this slow, like incredible build where you're just like, one day you look and you're like, I can't imagine my life without this person. I don't even want to comprehend it. Let's take it to the next level, because I just can't imagine it any other way. And I felt like that a little bit with the business, where it just got to the point, like I said at the top of the call, like, I did not care if I failed. That was 100% acceptable. What was unacceptable was not trying. And the second piece to that was, I also was getting really annoyed with like my boss and managers getting in the way, because I was so sick of the clunky technology. I wanted to do it myself. I found myself in Google Sheets, just trying to illustrate a point a little bit differently. And it was just like, if I could just get out of here, I'd do better. I would be better on my own. Where that was not the case, of course. I mean, I went into meetings and my knees were shaking. I was so scared to ask somebody who was older than me, how much money do they make? It's like such an awkward question. And I just felt like that by the time I got so much confidence, I was just kicking down the door. And it's like, we're getting financially naked right now. And that is just a totally different mindset change. And once that really, along with the feeling of I had to do this my way, when those two merged, it was see you later. So it's hard to really describe it above and beyond that.
And that's so good. That just you just have to do it. Like you can't think your way through it. You have to you can't think your way through life. You have to live it. You have to wake up and say, "Hey, we're just gonna give it a shot today."
I
And
think
I guess
so.
for you, Colin, for those people or advisors, or let's just say like people who are considering getting into the business, what advice would you give them? Because you know that you've been through the hoops already. They're
Yeah.
interns, they're college majors, they're maybe career changers, who knows, right? And maybe they are being approached by broker dealers, insurance companies. What would you tell them? Like, how would you guide them in a way of saying like that's not your only option, or like this is what I would do differently? Is that clear? Does that make sense? I know it's a bit of
Yeah,
a rant.
it is. And I would say probably to most young people, like, just follow your curiosity, because your curiosity is like, it's almost a little bit of like the Steve Jobs, like you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And if you just continue to follow your curiosity, if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to work at a big firm or a small firm, like go research them, go find your hero. Who do you like watching on content? How much money do you need to make? How much are they making? Is that perfect? Is that a good fit for you? What kind of services do you want to work with? High net worth people? Do you want to work with more mass affluent people? Who do you want to work with? And just continue to like ask yourself that and put one foot in front of the other and keep researching. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself potentially in a really cool niche that really speaks to you. And if you're not sure if you want to be client facing or behind the scenes managing money, research them both. Figure out both. Open up your own account. Start trading. Is that interested? Do you love it? I actually thought I was. I thought I was going to love managing money. I thought that's what this business was all about, was nerding out on the investments. And then I kind of found out that number one, when you start learning more about investing and the statistics of outperforming the market, I was like, all right, I don't know if that's exactly where my time should be spent. And I mean, hats off to people who do want to play that game, and some people are super successful. But I wanted to spend my time firing people up, hearing about their goals, getting them excited to save, learning about their relationships, high-fiving when they buy a house, when they have a kid, when something changes, and just getting so fired up. And that's just where my curiosity just led me right to that. And the curiosity just continued one foot in front of the other to starting this business and making it a virtual business, so that I can live in Michigan or live in California, and I can fly around and live in different locations, and allow my wife to chase her dreams, because that takes us all over the place geographically, and for myself. So all those things, kind of like looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that's so obvious. But 6 years ago, when I was just having that gut wrenching thought of like, gosh, I'm going to be so broke for so long. This is a terrible decision. I just following the curiosity. I couldn't, I think that's the only way to do it. Because that was probably not the most calculated decision. Now, of course, do the math, run the numbers. Like, I'm not telling you just to go buy lottery tickets by any stretch, but at some point, you have researched enough. You gotta just go.
Well, I think that's a great way to put a mic drop on the end of the episode. Well done.
Pressed post.
Everybody, yeah,
Upload.
exactly.
That's what I do on content. It's like, I could make this so much better. It's like, you know what? I got the next video to work on. Post. Boom. Let's go.
Absolutely. Well, Colin, thanks for the time today. This has been the Blueprint, an FPA NexGen podcast. I'm Mike Zarrelli. Deshawn Peterson. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.